Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to today's discussion. As Vonnie said, we invite you to go ahead and ask questions throughout. Obviously, if we're in the middle of a concept, we'll continue forward and then address the question as soon as we can. And we'll also try to leave a little bit of time toward the end of our hour together where you can ask additional questions. Obviously, if there are things that we can't fully address on today's webinar, I invite you to reach out to me personally afterwards via email, and we can certainly establish a dialogue to answer further questions at that point. Well, I'm really excited for today's conversation. I've been spending some time thinking about, what is going on out in the field as executives and as change practitioners are working to drive organizational transformation. And one of the big issues that we're seeing out there is a desire and a real energy for people to seek organizational best practices. And certainly there's some appeal behind that. We'll talk about that. But one of the things that we want to spend some time today talking about is why seeking some of those organizational best practices might actually be a little bit challenging and even damaging for your organization. And so that's kind of the topic we want to get into today. In terms of our, I'll get into the agenda in a minute. Just for those that are not familiar, I'm the Managing Director of AlignOrg Solutions, and we're a firm that specializes in helping organizations articulate their marketplace position, assess the capability of their organization to deliver in the marketplace against that strategy, to design organizations, work processes, structures, metrics, roles, responsibilities, and even talent, and then helping organizations go through the entire journey from beginning to end from a change management perspective. Most of our time is spent working with the organizations that we partner with as they go through that transformation journey. As we do that, with a part of the clients that we work with, we share capability. And what we mean by that is we try to train on some of the tools and methods that really help leaders think about how their organizations can be aligned for differentiation. So we really do view ourselves as practitioners who are trying to share what we know so that organizations and leaders can get stronger and better and faster at aligning their organization. Now, today's discussion is going to be fed by stories, examples that we've read about, that we've participated in from a variety of different organizations. We won't touch on stories from all of these organizations, but as we go from organization to organization, we clearly see some common trends, and we also see some unique situations. And what we want to do today is highlight a couple of learnings as it pertains to this idea of how to incorporate organizational best practices and how to make sure you're getting to an organization design that is right for your organization. Now to today's agenda. There's really three core topics that we want to try to cover. The first is one that probably many of us have already accepted, but it's the idea that marketplace differentiation in and of itself, by definition, makes it difficult to copy others. The second key topic that we want to cover today is the power of having a process for making organization design and change decisions. And then lastly, we want to hit squarely this idea of when do you look for organizational best practices and when might you not want to, so that you can take those lessons learned and apply them in your organization. And as I said, anytime there are questions, please chime in. Well, let's dive in. The first topic we wanted to cover today was this idea that marketplace differentiation makes replication difficult. There are certainly many organizations out there in the world today that are doing things very, very well. They have practices, processes, structures, products, services, solutions, delivery that is enviable, that we can learn much from. And it's certainly appealing. I remember a few months ago talking with the finance leaders of a relatively small pharmaceutical company who said to us, you know, over the next year to 18 months, we anticipate going from a single product to over 5 different products and from going from basically a North America-based pharmaceutical company to a global pharmaceutical company that will be distributing around the world. What do we need to make sure we know from a finance perspective so that we can help support the business grow and scale at that rate? It's a great question. And they're essentially looking for, is there somebody out there who has already done that, solved that, and found the right way forward? Now, the reality is there are certainly lessons to be learned out there, but there's an underlying principle here about marketplace differentiation that we want to spend time talking about this morning. Now, on this page, it's a little bit busy, but what I've tried to do is outline on the left-hand side 4 distinct marketplace promises that pertain to a retail store. There's no specificity as to which type of retail store, but just think about a large, national, international retailer. And the brand promise idea is that as a retailer, you could either be known as the best service or having the most unique selection of products, having the lowest price, or being perhaps the most convenient. And I suspect, depending on where you live around the world, you could probably identify a retailer right now in your own mind that best exemplifies each one of these different brand promises. Certainly, for many people, a Nordstrom's perhaps stands out as one that tries to have the best service. Of all retailers out there, on average, they try to be the best. There are others that certainly strive to be the lowest price, for example. We often think of a Walmart, perhaps, that fits that category. And then there are certainly others that try to be the most convenient. And in different locales and cities, we see places like a Walgreens or a Dwayne Reed or something like that that is intended to be there for convenience. What we find interesting is that depending on how your organization is trying to differentiate itself and the promise it's trying to drive in the marketplace, it will drive certain choices that you have to make in your organization. And what I want to highlight is now all of the information on the right-hand side of this table past the brand promise. Why don't we focus first on the best service row? In looking at the best service, if I really want to deliver that, I'm going to have to deliver certain activities or capabilities in my organization. For example, I'll probably have to have a higher staff-to-customer ratio than my competitors will. I'm going to have to design my store for easy navigation so that it's easy for people to find things and to conduct the business that they need to in the store. I'm probably going to have a very flexible return policy so that if I've made a mistake in my purchase or if I change my mind, I can easily come back and without a hassle get that sorted out and move on to the next purchase I want to make. I might include free or convenient delivery so that I don't have to worry about is this extra shipping or can it be delivered if it's heavy or awkward for me to take out of the store. And probably that whole proposition is going to be a bit higher in terms of price. It's going to be a bit of a premium experience. Now, I think as I walk through that, most of us can probably think in our minds of the store that we were talking about earlier. Now, if I go down to the lowest price row and contrast it with an organization, a retailer that is trying to be the lowest price, I start to see a variety of different choices and capabilities that organization has to be great at. They're obviously going to have fewer products so that they can turn those products very, very quickly and move them through the store, so there's high sales volume. It's about volume, savings, deals, and certainly there has to be efficiency somewhere in the way that that store or that retailer operates to drive, very thin margins and that higher volume, lower prices. Now, if I compare the best service to the lowest price row, what I find is they're very different capabilities and choices. Now, what's the moral of the story? It's sort of as I've indicated here at the bottom of the page. Are any of these strategies incompatible with one another? I think the obvious answer is yes. If I'm trying to be the best service, it may be difficult for me to also try to be the lowest price or the most convenient. And therefore, when we start to think about organizational best practices, I have to be very selective about choosing practices that are going to be aligned to the strategy and the brand promise that I'm trying to offer in the marketplace. Now let's go a step further and look at a real-life example. Well published, many people are familiar with the historical Southwest Airlines value proposition. Low-cost discount air carrier. In recent years, of course, they have expanded to be the largest domestic air carrier in North America. And their value proposition has evolved a bit as they've grown to expand to include business travelers and to fly into much larger markets. But during their sort of heyday, as they were growing up, they were certainly a distinctive option. And what happened, of course, is that there were a lot of organizations that saw the success and the following, in some cases, that Southwest was garnering, and so they tried to do something similar. Some might remember from, oh gosh, probably the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, Continental Light. Some may even remember the days of TED, or even Song. And even Air Canada tried to get into it with Tango. What's interesting is that over the years, all of those different spin-offs of the legacy air carriers have gone away. Now, each story behind each of these spin-offs is probably unique, but there are a couple of common themes. One of the common themes is they tried to copy some organizational best practices that Southwest had found a really great formula and that was leading them to some tremendous marketplace success and financial success. And they tried to incorporate some of those practices into their own businesses. Unfortunately, copying some of those organizational practices was not sustainable given the unique business propositions that these other organizations had. So that's not to say we can't learn from a Southwest Airlines, and I suspect over the years each of these organizations have not only learned from Southwest Airlines, they've probably learned from some of their own mistakes as well. But one could argue just trying to be Southwest Airlines, if you're trying to offer a different value proposition in the marketplace, a different brand promise, is not a sustainable solution.